to, let me think, January 9th was the last time we were above freezing, and we're still below it.
Yeah.
Yep.
San Diego, probably one of the few cities that's not under this deep freeze.
Yeah, playing football in 80-degree weather, nice and sunny.
Oh, you're so subtle.
Yeah.
Stay with us. Art Neal is up next with sports.
At this point, it looks like a containment effort. Maybe behind me here, you can see the yellow boom. This is in a sense, a floating sponge that stretches across the Saginaw River right now in case any of this gasoline gets loose in the water, at least a considerable amount of it. As you mentioned, the tanker Jupiter was at the total offloading station. They were in the process of pumping their 2 million gallon cargo of gasoline ashore. We don't know how much was actually pumped ashore into the tanks before this explosion occurred at about 8:15 this morning. The blast, you can't see it from this side, but when we were looking at the ship from the other side, it peeled the deck right up and right over the hull on the other side. Looks like it just opened a tin can on the top. Amazingly enough, the bilge pump is still running. Those of you that have been watching our cut-ins all through the morning know that one of the crew members was able to get the bilges going before they abandoned the ship when the fire started. And one of those is still pumping, but you can every so often notice a little bit more of a list to port, to the left, as this slowly starts to lean. And we don't know if that's from water coming into the boat or whether it's the cargo as it burns starting to shift a little bit. And we understand also that one of the hulls has still got its cargo of gasoline in it untouched. And that's the big concern. It could blow up or it could leak into the river. We don't know which. And also, Kim, as you mentioned, there is now only one cable holding this tanker against the current, against this strong wind, and keeping it from just cutting loose and starting to drift a fire down the river. That would be a very bad situation if that happens. It would probably end up going up against some city property where the water treatment plant is. That's kind of what is downwind from the hull at this point. But the pump is running, draining water, as you can see, more and more from the bilge. There's a slight list. It keeps drifting back and forth a little bit in the current and the wind, this way and that way. If it were to sink, it would completely block the shipping channel, and that would be another problem that would have to be dealt with. Another thing, Kim, you might notice all the seagulls flying around here. They're feeding on the dead fish that are now floating on the surface of the Saginaw River. There's a lot of them out here, so there's going to be some environmental impact, and that's an angle that Mike Avery is currently running down now, and we'll be having more on that later on. Back to you, Kim. Now, on a typical day, 31,000 cars will be crossing over the northbound span, but going to handle nearly twice that, 60,000 cars, when it hits that peak, like deer season and holiday weekends. Tonight, lots of traffic picking up for this holiday, and a lot of people were eager to try it out today, too. After all the talk about safety, motorists crammed onto the span for the opening ceremonies and that chance to drive across today. Ceremonies were quickly conducted by Transportation Department Director James Spitz.
Well, let me start by thanking all of you. I think there must be 1,000 of you out there, and I really appreciate your coming out today. Are you ready to go over it? All right.
The $132.6 million project, which Pitts called the most complex project the department has ever undertaken, came in $40 million over budget and 4 years late. But with the opening today, even some of the longtime opponents, like Congressman Bob Traxler, seem satisfied the bridge is safe.
Considering the careful scrutiny that the bridge has received, and I think that the kind of safeguards that are going to be built in coming years for semi-annual inspections and assurances that the bridge will function correctly are a great relief to all of us, and I think that the watchdogging that's going on has been healthy. I think it'll assure the public concerning the bridge, and we just hope that it'll be there as a good working facility 50, 60 years from now.
All that concern over safety stems from a 1982 construction accident that added nearly $7 million to the final price tag. The 2-block-long, 3-story depot was built in 1881. It was named after its first superintendent, Henry Potter Sr. The Potter Street station was the Ellis Island of Saginaw. Thousands of lumberjacks and later auto workers got their first look at their new home from this depot.
Itself was the end of the line for the Père Marquette, the terminus. Here for the Fulton Père Marquette, Saginaw was the main headquarters, its offices, shops. Everyone that came through Saginaw had to stop at that depot, had to get off the train right here in Saginaw.
During World War II, 24 trains a day passed through the Potter Street station. It was big enough to handle 6 at a time. but there hasn't been a passenger train here in 30 years. CSX moved its offices out in 1986. It was purchased last year by a group hoping to restore it. Many of them were in the crowd last night watching their dream burn.
We could see the light at the end of the tunnel, so as to speak. A lot of things were starting to happen. We had the support of the state historical division. We had the support of the National Trust, Historical Trust, and things were starting to happen.
It's just another one of our Saginaw landmarks that at the last minute there seems like good things were going to happen, and then there's always something unfortunate that has to change the plans. But who knows, maybe there's hope.
With its Victorian-era architecture, this was one of Saginaw's finest buildings. But all that splendor is over now, ruined by a fire that gutted this 110-year-old depot last night. Eric Jylha with News 5 Archives from what's left of the Potter Street Station. Work crews finally succeeded late today in freeing a boat that blocked the Saginaw River and a major bridge for 36 hours. The ordeal began early Wednesday when the Joseph Franz, loaded with 13,000 tons of gravel, got swept up by the fast current of the flood-swollen Saginaw River, jamming it against the Independence Bridge. It took 4 tugboats and 2 pieces of heavy construction equipment only minutes to free the 618-foot boat. The process involved wiggling it loose from the mud it nosed into, then pulling it backward into the shipping channel. Officials say divers will now check the bridge supports for any damage. The boat's unloading its cargo at the Wirt Stone Dock. Eric Jylha, News 5, Bay City. This is the way the hotel looked when it was built in 1892 by J.P. Blackmore. He used local wood and brick. And this was the first commercial building in Vassar to have electricity and modern plumbing.
It thoroughly exemplifies the lifestyle of the day.
Dorothy Watt is a member of the Cork Pine Preservation Association. They would like to restore the hotel to its former grandeur.
This room right here will be a museum for the city of Vassar. All the city of Vassar artifacts we hope to have here in this side of the building. The other room up there was always the dining room of the hotel. So we thought we could have a nice gathering place for local events in that area.
There have been several owners over the years, but for all the remodeling, the windows, most of the woodwork, and the tin ceilings are original.
Undoubtedly, there's cork pine in this building, plus we had a local brick factory, and more than likely we have Vassar brick in this building.
The Cork Pine Preservation Association started their cleanup of the hotel in 1989, placing it on the federal and state registries of historic sites. So it could have a new life.
Have a new life, yes.